I grew up here in Dallas. I own a couple of companies. I've been blessed to own a couple of companies, and I've done very well in my life. I have a great life. I have an opportunity every day to wake up when I finish sleeping. I don't have an alarm clock. So I wake up and I look and say, God, is it time to get up? And if I feel like sleeping, I go back to sleep. But that wasn't easy. I've worked for that. I've worked for that position in life. I'm also a motivational speaker. I've been to every major street, every Martin Luther King Boulevard in the entire country on purpose. Because I knew if I went to the Martin Luther King Boulevard, I would run into minorities. And I would be able to pray with them and encourage them and let them know that they're not victims, but that they are victors. See, we've got to get away from the victim narrative and quit playing into that narrative. No one has to tell me that my life matters. Because if I wait on you to tell me that my life matters, you may tell me that my life doesn't matter. My life matters because God has told me that my life matters. That's why I'm not moved on that movement. But here's the beautiful thing. It's creating an opportunity where we see the healing and the hurt of America. And as Republicans, we can pour and educate into these people who they really are, because they'll know who we are. So being in this position is pretty cool. You know, a few years ago, let me go back. I want to get real quickly here because I want to bring you guys up to par because I want you to see what America has the opportunity to do. First of all, I'm going to set the record straight, and I do this everywhere I go. I am not an African American. I am not an African American. I am an American. I don't know anything about Africa. I was born, bred, and raised on American soil. I am an American. I don't want the title of an African American. I'm here because I'm supposed to be here. It's the place that God has planted me. The faster we get rid of these words of division, the faster we can become unified in America. And we're at a good place for that. You know, it wasn't long ago, back in 1986 when I was a high school football player and had a lot of promising things as far as professional football was concerned. Because where I grew up in the hood, you guys know the hood is where like the black people are, right? Okay, you know I got to do Ebonical translation sometimes when I'm talking. I'm okay with that, you know? So the hood is where the black people are. And in the hood, matter of fact, isn't it pretty cool when you think about this, how strategic they were? They call it Planned Parenthood. Margaret Sanger called it Planned Parenthood because it was designed for black genocide. Okay? But okay, I just wanted to get that to you for free. But in 1986, something happened to me. I had total reconstruction of my knee and my football career was ended. As my football career was ended and I was in the hospital, I wondered for about a week why my parents didn't come to visit me because my dream, my American dream, the only dream that I knew had been shattered. Where I was from, you didn't know that there were other choices. It's like going to a restaurant. You only know your choices when they give you the menu. So for me, it was either football or drugs. Well, football ended, and as I'm in the hospital and I come home, I found out that my parents were getting a divorce. At the same time, so you've got a 17-year-old young man whose dream is shattered, and his parents are going through a divorce. Where I grew up, when you go to the right, you run into the gang members, and to the left are the drug dealers and the players. I joined the gang. I quit high school with 2 weeks left because I knew nothing else to do. One of my heroes became the hero that liberal Hollywood. You know, I've got a real problem with Hollywood. I've got a real problem with Hollywood. See, you don't understand, but the neighborhood got Superman as a hero. The hood got Superfly. A black man with a lone chinchilla coat, and he sold drugs and he drove a Corvette. So he became our hero. It was a setup from liberal Hollywood. They never wanted us to succeed. They took us away from the American dream. So I quit high school with 2 weeks left and joined the gang. In joining that gang, I began to go very fast for the next 7 years of my life. By 1987, I was selling crack cocaine, and I was hooked on crack cocaine. I'm good, thank you so much for that, I appreciate that. I got hooked on crack cocaine. So from 1986 to 1993, I was arrested over 45 times. From 86 to 93, I was shot 6 times on 2 different occasions. From 89 to 93, I was homeless in Dallas, Texas, sleeping in vacant houses, no lights, no gas, no water, no dreams, and no aspirations. I remember times that being homeless and being on drugs, I would be on the corner. And I knew it was Sunday because the people with the nice clothes would drive by. And there were so many times I wanted them to get out of the car and tell me about this God that they served. Tell me about why you go to this place with the cross on top. But they didn't. They locked the doors on me. Now some locked the doors, and I understand why. They were probably afraid. The ones that were afraid didn't bother me. It was the ones that looked at me as though I did not belong on earth. It was the ones that looked at me as though I was a piece of trash. That traumatized me. So my picture of what a Christian looked like early on in my life was a horrible picture. So I made a vow to never become a Christian because I didn't like the way Christians were. By 1993, I was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Aggravated robbery, deadly weapon, unlawfully carrying a weapon, terroristic threat, forgery. I had about 8 or 9 different charges. Drug charges, they were soon dropped. And just for the record, so everyone knows, I went for aggravated robbery, but I didn't rob regular people, I only robbed drug dealers. So I was an ethical robber, you know? I was a robber with etiquette. I only wanted to rob the drug dealers, you know? So I still had a little class about my robbery spree, you know what I mean? So when I hit prison by 1993, still a gang member, for the next 4 years it was rough. Because I was still in the gang, I was still angry, I was still frustrated, I was still hurt. I was still under the influence of the toxicity of my household growing up, where at 9 years old, I beat the kids up next door and they went to go get their cousins, and my father handed me a 44 Magnum, set me on the stairs and said, when those kids come back, you shoot them. That's the type of household I grew up in, where my mother and father were fighting. Now please understand that. That is not to embarrass them. They only did what they knew to do. Hurt people hurt other people. They were still experiencing trauma. So for the first 4 years being in the gang, not liking Christians, the 4th year in, I started feeling some things about myself. I started saying, God, why am I still here? Why am I still after being shot so many times and arrested so many times and in and out of jail, and I've survived so many obstacles and controversial situations? Why am I still here? And I had that conversation with God when I was in solitary confinement, and then the next day I did it again, and it was pretty cool because God didn't talk back to me or say that I was so wrong. He didn't look at me in a certain way. He just loved me back. I felt a sense of peace when I talked to him about this. The craziest thing happened the next day. I said, you know, God, if being a Christian is a way that I can turn my life around, then I'll accept Jesus Christ. And when I did that, baptized, filled with the Holy Spirit, and on fire in a cell by myself, and I had never read a Bible in my life. But the next 2 years of prison was very different. I read 248 books in 2 years. I understood that education would become the key to my success. Abraham Lincoln was one of my mentors. He said if I had 45 minutes to chop down a tree, I spend the first 30 minutes sharpening my axe. I began to read about people like Frederick Douglass, who 5 years after slavery, who didn't know who his parents were, who didn't have a birth certificate, who was clueless about where he was really from. But 5 years later, after educating himself, he found himself in the White House talking to Abraham Lincoln. People like this, as I began to read about them, made me understand that I was limitless to where I could go in America if I just made better decisions and better choices. I got in school. I wrote the warden over 150 letters because in prison, they won't allow you in school if you're a gang member. I wrote over 150 letters to get into school. So one day I saw the warden passing by, and I ran up and I got real close to him, and I said, Warden Jones, Warden Jones. He turns around, he looks at me, and says, Williams, I know who you are. If you don't write me any more letters, I'll let you in school. I said, yes, sir, that's all I want. Consistency. Consistency. See, you can hide mediocrity in this crowd, but excellence will always rise to the top. A character of excellence demands a door when there is no door. It creates the opportunity to influence those that you touch and those that you are around. So I learned how to walk, talk, think different. I said, God, if I'm going to be a king, I want to think like a king. I began to understand that Romans 12:2 said, be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you, Keenan, can prove what is the good and acceptable will of God. And I said, God, I want to prove that you live inside of me. And he said, change the way you're thinking. Proverbs says, so as a man thinketh, so is he. You never have to tell me who you are. You will always act like the person you think you are. I changed my walk. 5 more minutes and I'm going to wrap it up. I changed my walk because I was one of those guys from the hood that had the super cool walk. You know, that Huggy Bear move. You know what I'm saying? Don't act like you don't know what I'm talking about. Everybody knows who Huggy Bear is, right? So I had that super cool walk. I said, God, if I'm going to be with kings and dignitaries, because Joseph went from the prison to the palace. And I said, if Joseph can go from the prison to the palace, so can I. So I said, I need to learn how to do something different. I need to learn how to walk. And he gave me a picture of Solomon. The Bible said that Solomon ascended into the temple. In other words, he began to walk into the temple, and the Queen of Sheba saw it, and she fainted. I said, I want to walk like that dude. Any man that can walk that smooth and make a woman faint, he's a bad dude. I want to walk like him. 1996, I had a vision. I had a dream after reading about Joseph. And so I told the guys in prison, I said, I had the craziest thing. I believe that one day I'm going to go to the White House. And they said, why do you say that? I said, because Joseph went from the prison to the palace. And I'm going to do exactly what he did to get there. That was in 1996. They laughed at me and they thought I was crazy. Well, guess what? They're not laughing anymore. They're not laughing anymore. 24 years later, they're not laughing anymore. I want you to know that if you can dream it and you can believe it, you can achieve it. In America, because of our Constitution, it has built-in redemption. The Constitution has built-in success. That's why it's so important that we get the right president in who stands on the Constitution.